What's up, guys? Wanted to talk today about when logging is actually worth it and when you should just completely avoid logging on your property. So there's going to be a few scenarios in which logging makes no sense for you. Number one is around a residential property. And this is going to vary obviously by person to person, but an example here is I'm behind my house here. We got 3.5 acres, not a lot of land, but it's got some beautiful woods. You can see, over my shoulder, there's some big red oaks, and over here there's a big white oak, and there's just some beautiful timber down here in this bottom. And we sit up kind of up on the hill and able to look down over this, and you couldn't pay me enough to cut these trees down. Being in the industry, there's even times that, it pains me to mark a tree because of just, the beauty of that tree. But I believe that you need to be trying to attain a goal by harvesting that tree. So there's a few things, somebody might look at these trees behind me and say, oh, well, those are really big, they're going to fall down soon. And there is that possibility, but when it's behind my house like this and I get a lot of joy from just looking at these trees on a regular basis, I'm willing to risk that. I do believe that most trees are going to stand a lot longer than most people think they will, and it can be overplayed that this thing of, well, we need to cut the trees down because they're just going to fall over anyways. There is timber that gets to a point. There's a state park not far from me that the trees are to that point. There's a lot of hollow trees, they're just falling over, and it's a shame. But that level is a lot further than what most people think it is. Second scenario is if you're unsure of what the process actually looks like. You might have somebody knock on your door and want to buy your timber, for example. And a lot of those times, you may not have any idea of what that company actually wants to do. They may be unclear about their offer, about what trees they're taking, and ultimately you need to be clear on what is happening before you have those trees cut. I had a guy that I talked to earlier this year that he sold his timber and the crew moved in and began cutting, and he had a panic attack because he did not realize how many trees were actually going to be harvested. It was just like a point of cut harvest, and he was really regretting that decision because they use their woods a lot. They walk through their woods, they love the the way it looked and stuff, and had he known the end result of that project, he would have not done the harvest. And so I do believe you need to have a goal when you go to do a harvest. One example that it makes a ton of sense to do a harvest is if you're looking at it from the habitat or the hunting aspect of it, and that quickly begins to make sense to do a harvest if you've got mature timber. I look at a lot of properties that don't have enough mature timber to actually make a difference, and that would be another scenario to where you would not want to do a harvest. But then you also run into properties where it's 110 acres, most of it's big mature timber like you see behind me where it's all open like this. You don't have your woody browse coming up, you don't have enough there to hold the deer. In those scenarios, 100% makes worth to do a harvest. So another scenario that it may make sense to do a harvest, and this is something that I've utilized myself, is an investment property. So if you purchase a property strictly as an investment, and you may want to do some hunting on it as well, but let's say you bought a property and you plan to hold on to it for 3, 4, 5 years, and it's got some good timber on it, it may make a lot of sense to take some of that timber off, looking at it from the monetary return you're going to get off of that. Typically, if you give it 4 or 5 years after doing a harvest, that woods begins to heal and really doesn't look that bad for the resale then down the road. You just kind of a little caveat in that you want to be careful with the current market conditions of buying a property, harvesting it, and selling it 6 months later. Right now, with everything slowing down, it's not as easy to make as good of a return as what you may think. I've talked to a lot of guys recently that are end up just breaking even on their timber simply because of the net loss they have on the property by taking the timber off. But over the long term, it is a good move to get some of that capital back and be able to invest it into other properties or pay down the mortgage on that property. Gives you a lot of options, and it can make a ton of sense as an investment property to take timber off of it. Another reason that it might make sense to do a project where you're taking timber off is if you have other goals inside of that project. So let's say it's a completely remote property, you have no way of getting around it, there's no roads existing, and you want a property that you can take a ATV across and drive across the roads throughout it. You know, with the logging project, you're going to have roads throughout that entire property. And then also you have the option of, you know, adding some clearings or different things like that while the crew is in there with the equipment. So this can also make sense to do a harvest, but, you know, ultimately you want to still be sure of what timber is being taken and that entire process, which I've got a lot of videos on the best way to actually go about a harvest. So I'll leave those linked in the description below. And last but not least, if you're looking to improve the health of your woods, you may want to look at doing a harvest depending on the structure of timber on your property. So if you're looking to maximize for timber production, it may make sense to take some of the lower quality, lower grade stuff out, and you may need to take a little bit of grade at that time, a little bit of the better stuff to make it worth for the logger to come in and do it. But you can overall improve the health of your woods by taking some timber out. The amount of growth you're going to have on that timber is pretty dramatic when you begin to release some of those other trees that are going to be existing yet after the harvest. The growth on that is almost double to triple the growth that you have pre-harvest. So this can make a lot of sense if you're looking to improve the health of the woods, but also be careful on the flip side that you're not ruining the woods. So this is where it comes into having somebody that knows how to mark the timber correctly. But if you're going in and you have a really good structure of timber on that property, and you go through and only mark the good stuff and leave nothing but beech and buckeye and a lot of basswood and a lot of your lower grade timber, if that's all you leave in that woods, that's all you're going to have left, and that's what it's going to want to reproduce, and it's going to just slowly over time begin to lower the quality of that timber on that property. So doing a timber harvest can dramatically improve the health of the woods if done correctly. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm going to be posting regularly Thursday at 4 o'clock, so hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and we'll see you guys in the next one.